Good morning, happy Easter, and welcome to Politics Nation. You know, as a Baptist minister, I see this as a religious day. Many see it many different ways. Many have no religious beliefs, and all of that's fine. But I see it as a day of reflection as well as a day of celebration, whether you're religious or not. And as I look at what's going on in the world today, from the North Korea launching a missile that failed, or looking at the reveal your taxes President Trump marches all over the country, I look at things through the eyes of one who's been a civil rights activist before I was a teenager and all of my life. So the context that I look at the world comes from those eyes. I thought about how Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, who has been one of my mentors and was the executive director of Martin Luther King's organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he told me how in the middle of the struggle for public accommodations in the 60s, they were in Birmingham fighting against the forces of Bull Connor, and they were going to jail and kept fighting, going to jail. They finally had children go to jail. And they got around Easter week. Good Friday was coming. And the debate among the staff of Dr. King was whether to submit to go to jail and risk missing Easter Sunday, a big service in the Baptist church and certainly in the black church. And all of them, who were mostly ministers, wanted to be in their pulpit, or whether they should stay in Birmingham and go to jail and risk missing that Sunday. And as the debate raged on, Dr. Walker said, Dr. King went in another room, and when he came out, he had on his denims, and they knew he had made up his mind to risk being in his pulpit with his father, who pastored the church he co-pastored, on Easter Sunday. He chose the movement and the risk of changing history over what was his tradition, custom, and convenience. I look 50 years later, over 50 years later, and I look at what is going on with the things Dr. King and Dr. Walker and others went to jail for. We see Judge Gorsuch being confirmed and sworn into the Supreme Court. Now, many of us felt that it was a real hijacking of President Obama's nominee of being the justice that replaced, of course, the late Antonin Scalia. But the objective was more than just denying President Obama's nominee. It certainly was that. It was to really make sure the court didn't tilt toward President Obama appointing someone that would, in my judgment, preserve a lot of the things that Dr. King and others fought for in the 60s. You see, if they had put that seat and given that seat to Judge Garland, they would have lost a conservative seat, and that would have tilted the Supreme Court in the direction that many that fought for social justice and women's rights and LGBTQ rights and others had fought for. But by stalling, by breaking all the rules, they didn't only give a black eye to President Obama. They held on. So now you have 4-4, 5-4, or even votes, or praying that somebody tilts one way or another depending on your side. If they get one more seat on the right wing, one more, you have voting rights issues that are pending. You have gender rights issues that are pending. You have LGBTQ rights that are depending on these votes. You have climate change. You have the Affordable Care Act coming up another way. We are not just talking about an election. We're talking about the next half century or more that these court justices will decide, and it is right at the edge. We're on the brink of undoing what Dr. King and others went to jail for. When we saw Senator Sessions, the majority leader of the Senate, outright change the process, abort what was the Senate tradition. His target was not just President Barack Obama. His target was they want to roll back what had been established by civil rights and environmental rights and women's rights and gay rights. That was the target. And many of us were looking at the checker game and they were looking at the chess board. And this Easter Sunday morning, I'm looking at that board saying that they are on the brink of undoing all that was achieved. And as Dr. King chose, not to just go to a pulpit and go through tradition and pomp and ceremony. Oh, I'm preaching today, and many are as well. But we ought to be preaching about where we are in the world, in this nation, in our respective areas of concern on this Easter Sunday morning.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.